There are a number of things estate agents don't tell you when buying a house. These things can cost you thousands of pounds. It can make the process go potentially even slower and also make the process way more stressful. And it's not because they're trying to trick you, but it's just not in their interest to say it. I work with buyers like you every single day. And once you understand this process, you instantly put yourself in a better position, potentially getting the best out of your home buying journey. Make sure you stick around because I'm going to be going through 7 different things estate agents don't tell you. And when paired together, it completely changes the way you're going to potentially negotiate on your purchase. The asking price is not what the property's worth, it's what the seller hopes to achieve, because an estate agent uses a price to win business. For a month or 2 months, they go back to the seller and say, actually, this isn't realistic. We're not getting enough people through the door. We need to reduce the price in order to drive people in. So just because your Rightmove says it's listed for £350,000 doesn't mean it's worth £350,000. Now for the next one, I need to ask you a serious question. Do you think the estate agent works for the seller or works for you, the buyer? Now I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to make your choice here. Who do you think the estate agent works for? In the UK, the estate agent works for the seller. It is the estate agent's job to get the best price for the seller in the time frame that the seller desires. The seller signs a contract with the estate agent and then make sure that everything's outlined with their expectations. So you, the buyer, what does this mean? You want to make sure that you have your own little team that is separate from the estate agent. Mortgage advisor, solicitor, private surveyors should be your own team. This shouldn't come from the seller's side because there's potential conflicts of interest with all three. You want to make sure that information that is valuable to you, so what's your income, what deposit you've got available, what's your purchase power, so how much you can buy a property for, all of that information is within your own team, and you can only pass that information on to an estate agent as and when it's requested, but you have the ability to tailor your response to benefit your own situation. Point number 3 is some properties are already overpriced. You can potentially see a property hitting the market day 1. Just know that that property could be hitting the market at a price that is already too high. So try not to get caught up in the hype of a new property hitting the market, because they might have a busy first weekend because it's fresh meat ready to be attacked and people want to go out and view properties. Even in the slower markets, when a new property hits, that is the highest volume of viewings that property is likely to experience until a potential price drop later in the process. The only thing you can do to mitigate and to understand whether a property is overpriced or not is to actually conduct your own research. And the only way to conduct this research should be either through an online valuation, which basically looks at sales data for you, or doing it manually. Look at sales data in the area. Look what properties are actually selling for within a mile, within half a mile, hopefully on the same street, at the same size and the same property type. So detached, semi-detached, terrace. Make sure that it matches what you're looking at. And that's going to give you a really good understanding of the true value of that property. The more research you do, the better understanding you're going to have whether or not that property is fairly priced, underpriced, or overpriced. Point number 4 is time on the market. I would go as far as to say that estate agents try to hide this as much as possible. They're certainly not going to highlight how long a property has been listed for unless you directly ask the question. And the reason for it is because it's so powerful. Understanding whether a property has been listed for 1 month or 6 months could be the difference between negotiating or just giving the guide price. If you know a seller has been motivated to sell so much so that they've been waiting for 6 whole months, you are basically opening the door to having a conversation around the price. If it hasn't sold for 6 months, the first thing is, why hasn't it sold? The second thing is, what is the seller holding out for? And the third thing to really understand is, what's the seller waiting for? Is the seller committed to buying another property? Is the seller committed to achieving a certain price? Or is the seller waiting for a specific scenario to come in front of them, i.e. a first-time buyer or a cash buyer, someone that's not going to be in a chain? Understanding those elements is going to be extremely, extremely important, because it's potentially going to be the difference between getting a discount or not getting a discount at all. And a little trick that estate agents use as well, it's a little bonus for this point, is sometimes they remove the listing and they bring it back a few weeks later. Therefore, it's a fresh listing, new eyes, people forget that it was even there, and they don't have to include on Rightmove when the property was listed, because it's been off the market for a certain period of time, it appears as a new listing. Be really, really careful of this. Point number 5 is there's usually more flexibility than estate agents let on. Agents are not going to be actively advertising how flexible a seller really is. It goes against everything they've agreed with the seller, and it goes against everything they're trying to achieve, which is a high sale price, get their commission and run. And it refers back to the other thing that people don't mention, which is the estate agent works for the seller. As long as you always keep that in the back of your mind, and that is always there as a consideration when talking to estate agents, when communicating with estate agents and looking at properties with an estate agent, you're going to be framing yourself and putting yourself in the best possible position to ask the right questions and to get the most out of your purchase. Now, they're never going to be honest around the flexibility, but if you ask these 3 really, really important questions, you're going to know what flexibility is there and whether or not you're in a good position to take advantage of that flexibility. First one is the seller's desired timescale. What are they looking to do? So are they looking to go buy a property in the next 4 or 5 months? Therefore, they kind of need someone that's a first-time buyer or a cash buyer, i.e. you watching this video. The second one is understanding if there's any problems with the property. So if there's any structural things or anything that needs to be fixed, really, really important to understand this, because that's going to allow you to go and do your research into how much that might possibly cost to fix. Therefore, you're going to have a little bit of flexibility there, because surely that isn't priced in to guide price that's listed. And the third one, which is weirdly overlooked, is why is the seller moving? Now, again, they might not be completely honest with you, and a lot of the time they're going to go for a bog standard, well, they're upsizing or they're downsizing or they're just moving areas. But sometimes this question can lead to a very interesting conversation. And the longer conversation you have with an estate agent, and the more information you get on the seller, and ideally you actually see the seller and you can ask some of these questions yourself, the more information you can gather, the more of a picture you can paint. And the more of a picture you can paint on the seller's scenario, the more likely you are to be able to get a price that's not only fair, but not offensive. And that's something that is really, really important when negotiating. And I need to put a quote here. You need to remember that the seller is a person. This person has emotional ties to the property that they're selling. If you go in with an uneducated lowball offer, you are potentially upsetting and tainting that relationship, which not only potentially shuts the doors completely to negotiating, but can potentially mean that that seller is not willing to even discuss things further with you. Do not upset the seller. That is the line. Do not upset the seller. If you're going to lowball, make sure it's educated and make sure it's justified. Now, the 6th one here is really, really, really important, and it nicely leads on from our previous point, is how you communicate affects your offer. Estate agents aren't going to tell you this, but I've already mentioned you need to paint a picture of the seller. You need to understand their situation so that you can get the best out of it for yourself. But likewise, you need to paint your own picture to present to the seller, because the better your picture is, the more likely your offer is to be accepted. You are basically saying to the estate agent, this is our offer. These are all the reasons why we're a perfect opportunity, but it also shows you're ready. And being ready is so important, because especially in markets where properties have been potentially sat on there for months and months and months, people have been ready to sell that property and ready to move on from that property for a period of time. So having someone enter that's a bit like, yeah, well, this is what we're going to offer, we'll kind of work on it when we work on it, that doesn't seem serious. And the difference between being a serious buyer and a not serious buyer is massive. It can potentially completely change the way a seller looks at an identical offer. Now, point number 7 here is the best deals don't always feel comfortable. Now, you have to ask questions. And sometimes asking questions and getting information out of an estate agent about a seller is a little bit uncomfortable. Some estate agents make it that way so that you get as little information as possible, therefore going for the highest price possible. But asking the right questions and framing yourself in the right way and going into an offer with an educated valuation on the property that you've done from your own research, or you've allowed someone to do the research for you. And if you're confident in what you're offering on a property, that then means it feels a little bit less uncomfortable than it would have if you've just gone for a really low ball offer with no education, no research, no nothing into why you think it's worth that price, because potentially you're upsetting a seller, which is uncomfortable, right? Getting the negotiations done early and getting that agreed means that you've already got an equity boost that you wouldn't have potentially for years of your mortgage, depending on how well you negotiate. But just remember, if you spend 2 hours searching for a holiday to save £200, why wouldn't you spend 2, 3, 4, 5 hours trying to save potentially thousands of pounds when buying your home? Really, really important to understand that, because so many people set priorities on the wrong things when buying a house, and the purchase price should be at the very, 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 very top of your priority list. This video is not about estate agents being bad. It's about understanding the system that we operate in so that you can take advantage of these different areas, these different components, put that back into your court so that you can get not only the best price, reduce stress, but potentially avoid everything from falling apart at step 1, which is having your offer accepted. Now, I know this information can be overwhelming and sometimes it's hard to navigate this by yourself. So if you want a little bit of help navigating the process, understanding step by step, understanding your affordability, understanding your budget, get your mortgage in principle, and understanding how to negotiate successfully, you can book in a call using the link in the video description. Scroll down, click on that link, follow the page through. It's going to take you to my online calendar. Once you go through those links, you're going to have a whole page dedicated for times and dates where I'll be available. Book in the call for the time that works best for yourself. I'll make sure I'm available and we can go through everything together. And remember, this is something I help people with every single day, so you're not alone in this journey. I've got the absolute perfect video on my screen right now for you guys. Click on that video, have a look through, because it's going to tell you exactly how much deposit you should be committing towards your purchase this year, next year, or whenever you're ready to start the journey.